Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon.
Gisa the Hellraiser versus Alibou Ancient Witness, Obeka Splitter of Seconds, and Brenard Ginger Sculptor. Forgot all about Brenard, that's a favourite of mine, really like that commander. We have a slow hand and a 5 mana commander, so I'm going to risk a mulligan here into some ramp and 3 lands, and some means of protecting our commander along with committing crimes. A turn 1 Esper Sentinel from Alibou following the other 2 players who just get down a land. We draw into a Withered Wretch, which is a consistent means of exiling stuff and committing crimes. Farseek will cantrip the Esper Sentinel. Deathspore Thalid is going to suggest a fun way of playing the Obeka deck, as opposed to just breaking the game on turn 5. An Arcane Signet for the Boros player, and Esper Sentinel hits the Brenard player. Alright, getting to some more ramp in the form of a Mind Stone, I don't mind. We're going to draw the Esper Sentinel, unfortunately, but yeah, get down a Mind Stone. Liquid Metal Torque is another means of committing a crime as well, which is noteworthy. Don't have all that means of destroying artifacts in a mono black deck. Sylvan Library into Esper Sentinel as well, and deciding to pay the tax this time. That Esper Sentinel has already drawn 2 cards anyway. The Jukabog exiles the Farseek from the bin, followed by a Call of the Rings, so we'll be able to level up the ring really quickly with Obeka, but we'll have to be careful about dumping 2 life into that consistently. A Cloud Key, gonna name artifacts, you would assume. Yep, naming artifacts, making those cost 1 less, and then spreading the damage, we get an Esper Sentinel. Okay, drawing to Tetzamok, which we're not going to play, I wouldn't have thought, but we can pay black and reveal it to put a counter on something, and that will count as a crime. Drop our 3rd land, and if we go in for the Liquid Metal Torque, we'll be able to pay 1 for the tax and then get Lightning Greaves down, ready for our commander, so we'll do that. Esper Sentinel only triggers once per turn, so this will be fine. Have to see what kind of mana our opponents hold up during the next turn, because obviously we're projecting to them what we're looking to do with 5 mana and a Lightning Greaves. Makes us quite predictable. 39 life with Sylvan Library on the stack and a full grip already. Stays at 39 life and 6 cards in hand, following it up with a Rhystic Study, so doesn't feel as though he's going to get enough cards with a Sylvan Library. Don't think I'd ever play those 2 out alongside each other, not until I've successfully put a lot of life into Sylvan Library anyway. I'd be too worried about losing all the enchantments in play. But in all fairness, our opponent's up against Grixis and mono black, so not too likely that all the enchantments are going to be wiped out. A second counter being put onto this, and that is chosen as the Ring Bearer, so a legendary zombie fungus. Straight over to the Boros player's turn is an Archaeomancer's map, and paying the tax into Rhystic Study. There's going to be taxes all over the place here. Tome of Legends after that. We'll not be able to afford the Rhystic Study tax with that though. So we've got some blue mana being held up by Obeka. Do we just try and get down our commander regardless through that? Esper Sentinel turns in and offers up the trade against this. I would definitely take the trade here, but decides on the damage instead. Alright, another land for us, so if we get another one next turn we could afford to play Gisa again, but that's a big if. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I really want to do, to be honest, so we'll risk it. Rhystic Study tax we could pay, but I'd like to make use of the Liquid Metal Torque to make some zombies, so we'll say no. And priority is being held up by the Grixis player, unfortunately, so maybe made a mistake here. Alright, apparently not, so Lightning Greaves onto there. Alright, so the gamble paid off apparently. We will target the Rhystic Study, turn that into an artifact. You never know, the Obeka player might be able to blow up an artifact. That triggers our commander, so we do get the 3/3 Menace zombie tokens intapped. And we'll have to pass at that, although we could deal 4 commander damage. Yeah, I think going into the left with the commander damage will be fine, seeing as how there's risk for a lot of cards being drawn there. May well see a haste creature from either of the red players, but I don't think it'll be too much damage. Going down to 31 life over here, 9 cards in hand. A land comes in, triggering the Archaeomancer's map. 7 cards in hand over here as well. And did manage to get in another land there, that is a Slayer's Stronghold. And then a Felwar Stone being cast into the Esper Sentinel. These are the 2 planes that were searched out with the Archaeomancer's map, so yeah, our opponent's showing us more of his cards in hand here, being allowed to draw with the Esper Sentinel there as well. Then a Ranger Captain of Eos, so gonna search up a creature with mana value 1 or less, priority being held up by Obeka again. Searching out a Benevolent Bodyguard. Target creature you control gains protection from a colour of your choice until end of turn. And playing that out immediately. 35 life at the beginning of this player's turn. I think he just put 2 life into this. This thing is still the Ring Bearer and removes the counters from it straight away to make a Saproling token and then sacrifice that to give -1/-1 to the Benevolent Bodyguard, so that goes down immediately. And now it is a Vandal Blast. Is that overloaded? Gonna blow up a bunch of our mana and the Lightning Greaves. Gonna really hurt the Alibou deck as well. So Alibou being allowed into play here after the board wipe, and paid the tax on Rhystic Study for that. Alright, let's see what we get into here. That is a Victimize, which if our commander goes down, we can bring it back with the zombies being sacrificed. Withered Wretch is probably the thing to do here, and then we can trigger our commander a couple of times. Whether there is a Darksteel Forge here, I don't want my opponent reanimating that, so we'll probably point some of our reanimation or some of our exile over here. Not going to be able to pay for Rhystic Study, unfortunately, so go for the Withered Wretch and don't pay for that. And then we'll go after Darksteel Forge straight away. And crimes do count when you point at something in the bin, so Gisa will trigger straight away. Bring in a couple of tapped Menace Zombies. And there's still nothing too scary in play, but maybe it's best to leave behind a 3/3 zombie, so we'll go through to attacks here. Gisa only triggers once a turn, so we can activate this on another opponent's turn. Swing both of these into the left because I'm worried about all the card draw that the Bant player is doing over here. And the more life he loses, the worse the Sylvan Library is going to be. So down to 24, and Sylvan Library triggers with 9 cards in hand. Brenard Ginger Sculptor into play now. 2 mana held up. Not double blue though, which is noteworthy. Looks as though he's tapping out though. Into a Canker Bloom, destroy an artifact or an enchantment, or you can proliferate. Doesn't have the mana held up for that though. Call of the Ring and the Thallid trigger again. Obviously going to keep this as the Ring Bearer, 35 life at the moment. And just decide to pay 2 life to draw an additional card. Played and cracking a Terramorphic Expanse. And now seeing the Commander Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, so yeah, I think I'm alright with leaving that in play for a little bit. Maybe we can hold up removal during their turn. I mean, there's not a whole lot else that we're doing really, is there? With such a small amount of mana. Strionic Resonator will copy triggered abilities. It looks like the Rhystic Study tax is being paid for. And the Alibou comes in towards us, so now we look like we have an excuse to exile something from the bin here, which we were going to do anyway. So this triggers whenever it attacks. It deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. Don't have too many of those at the moment. Noteworthy, there is a treasure vault over here. Oh, and that is an artifact land, so he's able to shock something. There's an artifact land here as well, which is untapped. So just shocking us directly. Could have had rid of the Withered Wretch there, which you assume is going to be detrimental to this deck. Strionic Resonator copies the trigger. They are able to choose new targets with Strionic Resonator. Alright, and both going on to us. Does it have to be? Yeah, it's any target and you scry X, so they could have dealt it to the Withered Wretch, but deciding not to. And now that we're taking 5 damage here, I might just chump block with the Zombie Rogue. Wanted to be more aggressive with these tokens against this player before he starts going crazy, but if we're going to have to be blocking the Alibou, then maybe won't be able to. Do have to worry about haste over here now. So we'll chump block. And there is a Blasphemous Act, so gonna lose all our stuff anyway. Might as well exile something from their bin as punishment. Not going to be able to make use of the Victimize here, unfortunately. In fact, we're not going to do anything for the rest of the game, most likely. Get rid of their Cloud Key, just in case that's part of a combo. Weird that he played out Alibou just to wipe the board, though. Unless he's only just drawn into it this turn. I wouldn't necessarily worry about a Blasphemous Act this early. I thought the Vandal Blast was quite early as well, personally. Paying for Rhystic Study, at least. I'll put our commander back in the command zone. We're 3 mana away from playing it, but we might get into some fast mana or something. Brenard, Ginger Sculptor, is able to make some Golem tokens. So that is a Canker Bloom and gets to fetch with another Ranger Captain of Eos. And this time goes after a Selfless Saviour. So let's see if we can actually do anything this turn. Alright, get into a piece of mana again, so only 2 away from our commander, but yeah, it's not likely we're doing much of anything here. Let's go for Tetsamok. Might as well point it at these 2 things. We are showing our opponents that we've got it, but just in case we want to play this out and wipe out some creatures, we'll be glad that we did it. And then it's just a case of holding up Go for the Throat and Infernal Grasp. We'll be able to pay for the Rhystic Study tax as well. Down to 20 life and 9 cards in hand. That is a Kodama of the East Tree, which is going to do some crazy things. Could play a Selfless Saviour into that and get a free land out maybe. And then it's a couple of 1/1 golems turning in towards Alibou as punishment. Oh, that's sneaky. I didn't notice the ring had been fully levelled up already without Obeka even swinging in once. A Propaganda is going to be good against us. Swan Song going to counter that, I assume. Yeah, that came from the Bamp player. So a bird token being made over here. Got an interactive one today. Alright, a Wake the Past, returning all artifacts from graveyard to the battlefield, and they gain haste, so that's why we were exiling their stuff previously. Looks like it's getting countered anyway. An Offer You Can't Refuse. See if the taxes are paid on Rhystic Study. I think An Offer You Can't Refuse was paid for. That is successfully countered as a trade out for the treasure tokens. And yeah, still at 6 cards in hand over here. And following that up with an Enlightened Tutor. And using our treasure to pay for the tax. Ends up putting a Mere Retriever on top of the library. Still has some decent artifacts that he wants access to. Esper Sentinel, Signet, Archaeomancer's Map and Tome of Legends. So maybe he went for the Blasphemous Act previously simply to get rid of the Withered Wretch. Did actually put a stop on the end step there for blowing up the Kodama of the East Tree, but apparently the client doesn't want to give us that, so let's see here, why don't we just go for more Tetsamok stuff. Not going to run out Ashnod's Altar until we've got something to do with it. I imagine the game's over for us. Put a Prey counter on the bird token as well. Nothing's safe. And then we can still hold up the 3 mana for Kodama of the East Tree if we feel as though it's going to be a threat. Going down to 16 life now, thanks to the Sylvan Library. Plays a land into that. I think it was the High Market, so could get another land in for free. So now it's Brenard coming into play, and I think we'll allow it. Could get a free decent permanent here, but we probably will. But I think we need to keep this player as a threat to encourage more board wipes and interaction. Alright, and Adrix and Nev Twin Casters is a pretty damn good one to get in for free. They're all creatures though, so we get into a Toxic Deluge or a Damnation or something. Or maybe not, with a Selfless Spirit. We could point the removal at that, I suppose, before the end of our turn. These have been buffed up now, so 6 damage over here and then 3 to either of us. So we will do the Go for the Throat onto the Selfless Spirit and hope that Obeka can do something about this board. So in response, going to sacrifice Selfless Spirit, might as well. And is going to make a 1/1 copy of it. Losing 2 life again, and this becomes a Legendary Ring Bearer. It's an As Foretold, gonna make things cost 0 to cast once a turn. Gonna need Obeka in play for that though. And now a Court of Ire, so that is going to be 7 damage during the upkeep, which he probably won't be the Monarch during his turn, but it'll do 2 damage maybe to something relevant. If he's willing to pay the ward on this, could get rid of Adrix and Nev. Swinging in with this means that there is a loot effect on the ring. Discards a Darksteel Reactor, and turning in at us. Then each opponent loses 3 life because we were dealt damage. So we go down to 25. Draws a card to the Monarch as well. The Mere Retriever being played through the Rhystic Study. Alright, and just leaving it there. I don't think we've seen the Snow-Covered Plains yet that was tutored up previously. Anyway, see if we can actually do anything this game. Another swamp for us means we can just play out the Tetsamok and encourage a sacrifice of this. Just really getting through the Selfless Spirit triggers here, really. And this gets a 6/6 Death Touch blocker in play as well. We'll have to make him draw a card with Rhystic Study. Alright, so managing to have our opponent sacrifice a Selfless Spirit. Another land being played into the Kodama of the East Tree. 8 cards in hand at the moment. Going to do something in response to the trigger. And taking the Monarchy himself with a Court of Ventress. can make a copy of an artifact or an enchantment if you're the monarch, and otherwise it just becomes a copy of it. Alright, so I think managed to get in a free wing splicer there, making the golems a bunch of flyers, and yeah, triggers Kodama of the East Tree a bunch more times. Some more tokens have entered, followed by a Muldrifter, and that has been evoked, so it is going to die, and then bring in another couple of copies. So should put Kodama on the stack first, just in case he can draw into something of relevance for the Kodama, and he does. So Brenard triggers when Muldrifter goes down to the evoke, and gets a couple of golem copies in, thanks to the Adrix and Nev. So each of those will draw a couple as well, and trigger the Kodama, so likely going to see some extra lands. It's Check It coming in for free, so that will enter with a couple of golems, and then it's a plus counter on that and each golem you control. Well, there's been a free elemental bond as well, I think, so that will draw more cards off the golems entering. And we are seeing a Galadriel Light of Valinor as well, so 5 mana held up, 8 cards in hand, and going through to attacks. We get a couple of flyers, 6/6 goes down the middle, we get another flyer in Selfless Spirit, and not turning in with anything else amazingly. He's got a 3/3 Brenard here and a 2/2. Could go in over here with that and actually edge towards getting the game over. Alchemist's Apprentice will enter, and you just sacrifice that to draw a card. So obviously that goes good with Brenard. Triggers for a plus counter on each creature you control with Galadriel. Okay, the Court of Ire being pointed at us for some reason. As foretold, gets its first counter, and there's nothing to become the ring bearer. And Obeka into play again without any haste available. Well, there's a means of haste, a Ring of Valkus. This is the only ring that I have in my Obeka list, but we'll be able to get some additional upkeeps here. The ring goes on to Obeka, followed by a Slip Through Space. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. I mean, they can get through anyway, so that's just going to be a cantrip. And there's a Solitude from this player as well. So now it's a bazillion triggers again, a Kodama, Galadriel. Galadriel will choose a trigger, Elemental Bond draws, and the Solitude has been evoked, so it's going to be exiled. And then a couple of copies will come out with the Brenard and be able to continue to exile stuff. So the Solitude pointed at the Obeka, and it's a plus counter on everything with Galadriel. Noteworthy that he exiled a Farewell in order to play the Solitude. So another couple of Solitudes come into play, and each of us going to lose our individual creatures. So it'll be triple green and scry 2, then draw with the Galadriel, draw a couple more cards with the Elemental Bond, and more free stuff with Kodama. Alright, we've ended up with a Linvala here. There's a doubling season as well. Just going to let the stack go all the way through, and we'll see what the board actually has in play after that. An Iron Mia from the Boros player. Noteworthy that the Alibou is stuck in the bin, and it's Throne of the God Pharaoh, so has nothing over here. Alright, so top deck we need a Living Death or something like that. It is a Gem Palm Polluter, so we've got absolutely nothing. So all our opponent has to do here, I've just decided to concede it because it's taking forever. All our opponent has to do is swing in at everyone here, so I will leave the game here and declare this player the victor. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm going to try and get a real game in with Gisa the Hellraiser now, but you've probably already seen that already. Probably weeks or months ago at this point. Hope you all enjoyed it. Like I said, big thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel. You can support via the link in the description below if you would like. Massive thank you to those of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.